The exploration vessel Horizon drifted silently through the outer reaches of human space. Commander Lisa Bennett stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the view screen that showed the endless black dotted with stars. After 3 months of routine patrol, the crew was eager for something interesting to happen. "Commander, we're picking up an unusual signal," John Russell said, looking up from his console. As Lisa's second-in-command, John was always calm and collected, his analytical mind perfect for space exploration. Lisa walked over to his station. "What kind of signal?" "It doesn't match anything in our database. Definitely not human in origin." The bridge fell silent. After nearly a century of space exploration, humanity had yet to encounter intelligent alien life. There had been microbes and simple organisms on distant planets, but no civilizations. "Location?" Lisa asked. "Just beyond Pluto Station in neutral space," John replied. Lisa took a deep breath. "Set course to investigate. Alert the crew. This could be first contact." The Horizon changed direction, its engines humming with power as it moved toward the signal's source. Lisa sent a message to Earth Defense Force headquarters reporting their discovery and intentions. Admiral Frank Morales responded immediately with orders to proceed with caution. 6 hours later they saw it, a ship unlike any human vessel. It was dark purple with ridged edges that reminded Lisa of a crocodile's back. It was twice the size of the Horizon. "Open a standard greeting channel," Lisa ordered. The communications officer sent the carefully prepared first contact message. A simple mathematical sequence followed by basic language information designed to establish communication. For nearly an hour, there was no response. Then suddenly, the alien ship transmitted back. The ship's AI quickly processed the incoming data. "Commander, they're sending visual communication. They want to see us," the communications officer reported. Lisa straightened her uniform. "Put it on screen." The view screen changed to show the interior of the alien vessel. Standing in what appeared to be their command center was a tall, reptilian being with scaled skin in shades of green and brown. Its eyes were vertical slits, and a ridge of spines ran from its head down its back. When it spoke, its voice was translated by the ship's computer into a deep, rumbling English. "I am Warlord Kreth of the Vrax Dominion. You have entered space claimed by the Vrax. Identify yourselves." Lisa kept her expression neutral despite her surprise. "I am Commander Lisa Bennett of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon. We were unaware. This region was claimed territory. We come in peace and wish to establish friendly relations." The alien's mouth twisted in what seemed like amusement. "Peace? The Vrax do not seek peace. We conquer. But you are an unknown species to us. We will learn about you before deciding your fate." The reptilian eyes narrowed. "Prepare to receive a shuttle. I will board your vessel for negotiations." Before Lisa could respond, the transmission ended. John looked at her with concern. "Commander, should we allow them aboard?" Lisa considered their options. Refusing could be seen as hostile, but allowing armed aliens onto the Horizon carried its own risks. "We'll meet them, but have security teams on standby. Let's be diplomatic but cautious." 2 hours later, Warlord Kreth and 4 Vrax guards stepped onto the Horizon. In person, they were even more imposing, standing nearly 7 feet tall with muscular bodies covered in natural armor-like scales. They carried weapons that looked like advanced energy pistols. Lisa greeted them in the ship's conference room, with John and 2 security officers present. "Welcome aboard the Horizon," Lisa said. "We're honored to be the first humans to meet your species." Kreth looked around the room, his gaze dismissive. "Your ship is small and unimpressive. How many worlds does your species control?" "We have Earth, our homeworld, and colonies on Mars and Europa within our solar system. We're still exploring beyond that," Lisa explained. Kreth made a sound that might have been laughter. "A primitive species, then. The Vrax control 17 solar systems and have subjugated all intelligent life within them." Lisa kept her diplomatic smile fixed in place. "We prefer peaceful exploration and cooperation with other life forms." "Weak approach," Kreth said. "The strong survive by dominating the weak. This is the natural order." The meeting continued for another hour, with Kreth asking questions about human defenses, population centers, and military capabilities. Lisa answered carefully, providing general information without revealing strategic details. When the formal meeting ended, Lisa offered to show Kreth around the ship. As they walked through the corridors, she noticed how the Vraks studied everything, with calculating eyes. "Your species is soft," Kreth commented as they observed crew members in the recreation area. "No natural armor, no claws. How have you survived?" "We adapt," Lisa said simply. "What we lack in physical strength, we make up for in other ways." They reached the botanical garden where the ship grew some of its food. Kreth seemed puzzled by the concept of growing plants for sustenance rather than hunting. "Your visit has been enlightening, Commander," Kreth said finally. "I believe I understand humans now." Without warning, he grabbed Lisa's arm with his scaled hand. "You will come with me to our ship. We need to study a human specimen more closely." The nearby security officer moved forward, but Kreth's guards raised their weapons. The situation was moments from erupting into violence. Lisa didn't hesitate. Years of combat training took over. She twisted out of Kreth's grip using his own momentum against him, then delivered a swift strike to a spot just below his jaw, a vulnerable point on many Earth reptiles that she gambled might work on the Vraks. It did. Kreth staggered backward, obviously shocked that the smaller human had broken his hold. The guards hesitated, clearly not expecting resistance. In that moment of confusion, Lisa's security team moved in, weapons drawn. "This meeting is over," Lisa said firmly. "Return to your ship immediately." Kreth rubbed his jaw, his vertical pupils narrowing to thin lines. "You dare to touch a Vraks warlord?" His voice was quiet with disbelief. "I defend myself and my crew. We offered peace and meant it. But don't mistake peaceful intentions for weakness." For several tense seconds, no one moved. Then Kreth made a sound, something between a hiss and a laugh. "Interesting. Perhaps humans are not as soft as you appear." He gestured to his guards to lower their weapons. "We will depart, but we will meet again, Commander Bennett." After the Vraks returned to their ship, Lisa watched from the bridge as their vessel moved away and then vanished into what appeared to be some form of faster-than-light travel. "Send a priority message to Admiral Morales," she told John. "We need to prepare. I don't think we've seen the last of the Vraks." John nodded, his expression grim. "They seemed predatory." "Yes," Lisa agreed, thinking of Kreth's cold, calculating eyes. "And I suspect we've just become their next target." As the horizon set course for Earth, Lisa knew that humanity's peaceful exploration of space had just come to an end. A storm was coming, and they needed to be ready. 6 months passed since the encounter with the Vraks. Earth's leaders had taken Commander Lisa Bennett's warning seriously. Admiral Frank Morales organized emergency defense meetings. Scientists and military experts worked together to prepare for a possible invasion. Still, with only 3 populated worlds and limited space forces, humanity remained vulnerable. Dr. Alan Pierce never thought he would become a soldier. As the head scientist at the New Eden Colony's mining operation, his days were spent studying mineral samples and improving extraction methods. The colony, home to 50,000 people, was humanity's newest outpost. Alan was in his lab when the alarm sounded. Red lights flashed as the colony's AI made the announcement. "Unidentified ships entering orbit. All citizens report to shelter areas." Alan hurried to the window. In the sky above, he could see dark shapes moving through the clouds. His assistant, Meg Harris, joined him at the window. "Are those Vrak ships?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I think so," Alan replied. The emergency briefing from Earth showed similar designs. The colony's small defense force wouldn't stand a chance against a serious invasion. Alan knew this, but instead of panicking, his mind began working on solutions. "Meg, get to the shelter," he said. "I need to check something in the mining facility." While citizens rushed to underground bunkers, Alan ran in the opposite direction toward the mining complex. He had an idea. If the Vraks were as reptilian as Commander Bennett's report suggested, perhaps their biology had similar weaknesses to Earth reptiles. At the same time, on the colony's defense platform, Captain Steve Miller watched the Vrax ships descend. There were 12 of them, each many times larger than his 3 patrol ships. "Sir, they're hailing us," his communications officer said. The view screen showed a Vrax officer, his scaled skin darker than Warlord Kreth's. "I am General Zork of the Vrax Dominion. Your planet is now under our control. Surrender and your deaths will be quick." Steve straightened his back. "This is Captain Steve Miller. We have no quarrel with the Vrax. We request peaceful discussions." The Vrax made a dismissive gesture. "There is nothing to discuss. You have 1 hour to surrender before we begin destroying your settlements." The transmission ended. Steve turned to his crew. "Launch all fighters. Contact the other patrol ships. We're implementing Plan Mosquito." Plan Mosquito was a desperate strategy. Humanity couldn't match Vrax firepower, but perhaps they could use their smaller, faster ships to harass and confuse the enemy. Like the insect they were named after, the human fighters would sting, move, and sting again. In the mining facility, Alan accessed the main control room. The complex used sound cannons for breaking rock formations, devices that emitted focused, sonic waves at specific frequencies. Alan had noticed during his review of the Virax data that their hearing range was likely different from humans based on their ear structure. Working quickly, he adjusted the mining equipment to create portable, sonic devices. If his calculations were correct, these would emit sounds extremely painful to Vrax hearing but barely noticeable to humans. Above the colony, Captain Miller's strategy was creating unexpected problems for the Vrax. Instead of forming a defensive line as expected, the human ships darted between the larger Vrax vessels, firing at vulnerable points and then speeding away. General Zork slammed his fist on his command chair. "How are these primitive ships avoiding our targeting systems?" His weapons officer looked confused. "They're changing course at random intervals, sir. The patterns make no sense. They're attacking in groups of 3, then splitting up, then rejoining from different directions," another officer reported. "Our computers can't predict their movements." 2 Vrax ships had already suffered significant damage, not enough to destroy them, but enough to show that this conquest wouldn't be as simple as expected. On the ground, the first Vrax landing parties were approaching the colony center. They moved with military precision, clearly expecting little resistance. They had conquered dozens of species before. This should be routine. Maria Diaz, the colonial governor, watched from the emergency command center as the aliens advanced. "Is everyone in the shelters?" she asked her staff. "Almost everyone," her assistant confirmed, "except we can't locate Dr. Pierce. He went to the mining facility." Maria frowned. "Send someone to find him. We can't have civilians wandering around during an invasion." But Alan was no longer at the mining facility. He and several mining engineers had loaded the modified sonic devices onto transport vehicles and were approaching the Virax landing parties from behind. "Remember," Alan told his makeshift resistance fighters, "stay out of sight, activate the devices and retreat immediately. We don't know how they'll respond." When the first sonic weapon activated, the effect was immediate. The nearest Vrax soldiers clutched at their head areas, some dropping their weapons. The sound, barely audible to the humans, was clearly agonizing to the aliens. General Zork was receiving disturbing reports from multiple fronts. His ships in orbit couldn't pin down the irritating human vessels. Ground forces reported strange attacks that left soldiers disoriented without visible weapons being used. "These humans are not fighting conventionally," his second-in-command observed. "It doesn't matter," Zork snarled. "We outnumber them. We have superior technology. Increase the attack." But as hours passed, the situation didn't improve. 3 more Vrax ships suffered critical damage from the darting human fighters. On the ground, Alan's sonic weapons had been deployed around the colony, creating zones the Vrax couldn't enter without suffering intense pain. Captain Miller's ship took a direct hit and began losing power. "Abandon ship," he ordered his crew. "Implement scatter protocol." The crew escaped in small pods, each heading in different directions, another tactic to confuse Virax targeting systems. Miller himself piloted his pod directly toward a Vrax vessel, making it appear as a suicide. Run. When the larger ship moved to avoid collision, it drifted into the range of the colony's defensive guns. After 18 hours of battle, General Zork made a decision that no Vrax commander had made in living memory. "Order all forces to withdraw," he told his bridge crew. "We will regroup and analyze these human tactics." His officers stared in disbelief. "Withdraw? From primitives? These primitives have destroyed 4 of our ships and incapacitated hundreds of ground troops," Zork snapped. "I will not lose my entire force due to pride. We need to understand their weaknesses better." As the Vrax ships pulled away from New Eden Colony, similar retreats were happening at the other 2 human worlds they had attacked. In each location, humans had used unexpected tactics and improvised weapons that the Vrax had never encountered in their long history of conquest. Back on their command ship, General Zork drafted his report to High Command. How could he explain that these soft, armorless creatures had successfully resisted a Vrax invasion force? For the first time in his military career, Zork felt something unfamiliar, a sense of uncertainty about victory. What he didn't yet realize was that this feeling had another name, one unfamiliar to the Vrax. It was the beginning of fear. Admiral Frank Morales stood before the Earth Defense Council, his face grim but determined. The large screen behind him showed images of the recent battles at the human colonies. "We've successfully repelled the first Vrax attacks, but they will return with greater numbers," he said. "Our defensive tactics won't work a second time. They'll adapt." The council members looked worried. One asked, "What do you suggest, Admiral?" "We need to take the fight to them," Morales replied. "Learn more about our enemy. We need intelligence about their biology, psychology, and weaknesses." Lisa Bennett, recently promoted to Commander of Special Operations, stepped forward. "I've assembled a team for just such a mission. The Vrax don't expect us to enter their territory. They've always been the invaders, never the invaded." The plan was dangerous. Lisa and her team would use a captured Vrax shuttle from the battle at New Eden. They would infiltrate Vrax space, gather intelligence, and return without being discovered. If caught, Earth would deny any knowledge of the mission. 3 weeks later, Lisa sat in the pilot seat of the Vrax shuttle. With her were 4 specialists chosen for their unique skills. Keith Jordan was a linguistic expert who had studied the Vrax language from the limited communications they had. Samantha Wright was a Special Forces soldier skilled in multiple combat techniques. Eric Wallace was a technology specialist who could hack into alien systems. Paul Baker was a xenobiologist focused on understanding Vrax biology. "Final systems check," Lisa ordered as they prepared to leave Earth's orbit. "Navigation working," Paul reported. "The shuttle's original course data is giving us the location of several Vrax outposts." "Weapons operational," Samantha confirmed. "Though I hope we won't need them." "Cloaking technology analyzed and functioning," Eric added. "As long as we don't get too close to their main detection systems, we should remain invisible." The shuttle left Earth quietly, without ceremony. Their mission was officially classified. Even if they succeeded, few would ever know what they had done. Using the Vrax ship's faster-than-light drive, they reached the edge of Vrax territory in just under a week. The first thing they noticed was the increased military presence. "They've doubled their border patrol since the attack on our colonies," Lisa observed. "They're taking us seriously now." Keith studied the communications they were intercepting. "There's something interesting in their transmissions. The linguistic patterns show signs of uncertainty. That's new compared to their earlier communications." The team navigated carefully through Vrax space, staying away from major travel routes. Their first target was a small outpost on the moon of a gas giant planet. The facility appeared to be a research station rather than a military base. "Perfect for our needs," Lisa said. "Eric, can you tap into their systems from here?" Eric connected their shuttle's computer to the outpost's network. "Their security is impressive but designed to keep out known enemies. They have no defense against human hacking methods." For 6 hours, Eric downloaded data while the others kept watch. The information they gathered was illuminating. The Vrax had detailed files on 17 conquered species, each subjugated, and now serving the Vrax Empire. Some were used as labor, others as soldiers, but all lived under strict control. Look at this, Paul said, pointing to biological data. The Vrax have a unique nervous system. They literally cannot feel fear as we understand it. Their brains don't process threats the same way ours do. Keith made another discovery while studying cultural files. They communicate partially through subtle skin color changes and pheromones we can't detect. That's why their spoken language seemed incomplete. Their information gathering was interrupted when Eric noticed unusual activity. Someone's checking the system. They know we're here. Lisa made a quick decision. We've got enough. Let's move to the second phase. The second phase was even riskier. They needed to observe Vrax in person. The shuttle landed in a remote forest area on a planet that served as a Vrax colony. Disguised in dark clothing designed to mask their heat signatures from Vrax thermal vision, the team approached a small settlement. From their hiding spot, they watched Vrax civilians and soldiers going about their daily activities. Samantha focused on their movements and fighting styles, recording everything with a small camera. Their fighting techniques rely on strength and natural armor, she whispered. But they're slower than humans and less flexible. I can use this. Keith noticed something else. Look at their interactions. There's no physical affection, not even among family units. But they have a strict hierarchy. Lower-ranked Vrax always defer to higher ranks, even in casual settings. A patrol passed nearby, forcing the team to remain motionless for nearly an hour. When it was safe, they retreated to their shuttle and took off, narrowly avoiding detection. 4. The next 8 days, they visited 2 more Vrax worlds, gathering more information each time. On the third planet, they discovered something crucial, a training facility where Vrax soldiers learned about conquered species. They're studying us, Lisa realized as they accessed the facility's records. This is a complete analysis of human biology and behavior based on their brief encounters with us. Paul examined the data. Their assessment is interesting. They recognize our physical weaknesses, but they're confused by our social structures and adaptability. What surprised them most was a recording of High Commander Skreeg, the supreme leader of the Vrax forces. He was addressing his officers about the human problem. These humans do not fit our understanding of intelligent species, Skreeg said in the recording. They have no natural weapons or defenses, yet they resist effectively. They should be studied further before the main invasion force is committed. This was valuable news. The Vrax were planning a larger invasion, but they were hesitating, something they had never done with any previous species. Their final discovery came when they infiltrated a Vrax biological research center. There, they found information about Vrax breeding grounds, sacred spaces where their young were raised in communal hatcheries. These locations were never attacked, even during the rare conflicts between Vrax factions. This is their most vulnerable point, Paul noted, culturally and biologically. As they prepared to return to Earth, their shuttle was spotted by a Vrax patrol ship. A brief but intense chase followed, with Lisa using her knowledge of human unpredictability to confuse the Vrax pilots. Just as they were about to be captured, Eric deployed a device that overloaded the Vrax ship's sensors, allowing them to escape into faster-than-light travel. When they finally returned to Earth space, their shuttle was damaged and low on power, but their mission was a success. The intelligence they gathered would change the course of the coming conflict. Admiral Morales personally greeted them upon their return. Was it worth the risk? He asked Lisa. Lisa handed him the data storage device containing everything they had learned. Yes, sir. We know how to fight them now. More importantly, we know how to make them feel something they've never experienced before. And what's that? Morales asked. Fear, Lisa answered simply. We know how to make the galaxy's apex predators feel fear. Ryan Phillips had never imagined his psychology degree would be used like this. He sat in a room deep within Earth Defense Headquarters, surrounded by experts in various fields. On the screens before them were images and data about the Vrax, collected by Commander Bennett's team. Our physical weapons will never match theirs, Admiral Morales told the assembled group. But we have something they've never faced before. Psychological warfare. Ryan nodded. As the leading specialist in alien psychology, he had spent weeks studying the intelligence from the mission. The Vraks have never experienced defeat. Their entire society is built on the certainty of their superiority. We need to shake that foundation. The plan they developed was unlike any military strategy in human history. Instead of direct confrontation, humans would wage a campaign of uncertainty and doubt. Operation Shadow began 3 weeks later. In a remote Vrax outpost, the guards were changing shifts when the lights flickered. Security cameras showed a brief image of a human figure in the corridor before going dark. By the time the backup systems came online, there was nothing to see. But in the command center, they found something disturbing. A human symbol painted on the wall. Similar incidents occurred across Vrax territory. Small human strike teams, using stealth technology developed based on Vrax sensors, appeared and disappeared without warning. They never attacked directly, never killed. Instead, they left evidence of their presence in secure areas thought to be impenetrable. Lieutenant Laura Chen led one such team. Her 4 soldiers moved silently through a Vrax military base. There, special suits masking their heat signatures and scent. Their mission wasn't to destroy but to be seen, briefly, mysteriously, and then vanish. Remember, Laura whispered to her team. We want them to know we were here, but not how we got, in or out. They placed small devices that would activate hours later, projecting human voices speaking in Vrax language. The messages were simple but unsettling. We see you, we could have killed you, we chose not to. On the Vrax command ship, High Commander Skreeg received reports of these incidents with growing concern. How are they penetrating our defenses? He demanded of his officers. Unknown, High Commander, General Zork admitted. They appear and disappear without using any technology we can detect. Increase security at all breeding grounds, Skreeg ordered. It was the first time in Vrax history that such a precaution had been necessary. No enemy had ever reached their inner territories, let alone threatened their young. The psychological impact was exactly what Ryan had predicted. The Vrax operated on absolute certainty of their dominance. The idea that humans could move freely through their territory, choosing when and where to appear, challenged that certainty. General William Davis coordinated the overall campaign from Earth. Phase 2 begins tomorrow, he informed his officers. We've confused them. Now we need to divide them. Phase 2 targeted the Vrax command structure. Using the intelligence about Vrax communication methods, human operatives began broadcasting false orders and misinformation. Vrax ships would arrive at rendezvous points to find no one waiting. Supply deliveries went to the wrong planets. Patrol routes were changed without proper authorization. The confusion spread, and with it came the first cracks in Vrax unity. Sub-Commander Grask, responsible for outer territory defenses, openly questioned his superiors in a meeting. Our forces are scattered. Our communications are compromised. Yet our leaders insist we are not vulnerable, Grask said. These humans move through our space as if our defenses don't exist. Such questioning would have been unthinkable months earlier. Vrax never questioned higher ranks. The mere fact that Grask spoke these words showed how deeply the psychological campaign was working. Meanwhile, Ryan proposed the most daring move yet. We need to target their breeding grounds, he told Admiral Morales. Not to harm them, but to show we could. That's extremely risky, Morales cautioned. If they perceive a real threat to their young, they might launch a full-scale attack on Earth. We'll be careful, Ryan assured him. We won't actually enter the breeding facilities. We'll just let them know we found them. A small team, led by Samantha Wright, deployed to a planet deep in Vrax territory. Using the stealth techniques they had perfected, they approached one of the sacred breeding grounds. They placed small markers around the perimeter, just human, footprints preserved in hardening gel facing away from the facility. The message was clear. We were here. We could have entered. We chose to leave. When the Vrax discovered these markers, panic spread through their ranks for the first time in their history. High Commander Skreeg called an emergency meeting of all military leaders. These humans must be stopped, he declared. They have violated our most sacred spaces. But they didn't enter, one officer pointed out. They didn't harm any hatchlings, they just left footprints walking away. That's the most disturbing part, another commander said. Why would they not attack when they had the chance? What are they planning? This uncertainty was new to the Vracs. As apex predators, they understood direct aggression. They did not understand restraint that came from choice, rather than weakness. It confused and unsettled them in ways they couldn't articulate. On Earth, Ryan watched the reports of Vracs' reactions with satisfaction. It's working. They're beginning to question themselves, question their superiority. The campaign continued for months. Human teams appeared and disappeared throughout Vrac space. They left messages, symbols, and signs of their presence, but never engaged in direct combat. Sometimes they would help Vracs who were in danger, rescuing stranded pilots or warning outposts about natural disasters, only to vanish afterward. This behavior was incomprehensible to the Vracs. Enemies were to be conquered or destroyed, not assisted. The concept of an enemy who could attack but chose not to was foreign to their understanding. In the heart of Vracs territory, a greater change was occurring. The subjugated species, who had lived under Vracs' control for generations, began to notice the confusion among their masters. Whispers spread about the strange humans who moved like ghosts through Vracs' defenses. A Vracs patrol ship returned to base after reporting a brief encounter with a human vessel. The captain described how the human ship approached, scanned their damaged engine, and then transmitted repair instructions before disappearing. Why would they help us? The confused captain asked his superiors. No one had an answer. In his private chambers, High Commander Skreeg reviewed all reports of human activities. For the first time in his long life, he felt something unusual. A tightness in his chest, a constant alertness that wouldn't fade. He didn't have a name for this feeling, but humans would have recognized it instantly. It was fear. The galaxy's apex predators were finally learning what it meant to be afraid. The signs of change spread across the Vracs Empire. Murmurs of resistance emerged from planets long conquered. Species that had submitted to Vracs' rule for generations now watched their masters with new eyes. If humans could stand against the mighty Vracs, perhaps they could too. Ambassador Daniel Foster traveled in a human diplomatic vessel to meet with representatives of the Tilak, a blue-skinned species that had been under Vracs' control for over 200 years. His mission was delicate: to forge alliances without directly inciting rebellion. We don't offer weapons or soldiers, Daniel explained to the Tilak leader, a tall female named Galax. We offer knowledge, ways to resist that don't require matching Vracs' strength. Galax's large eyes studied the human carefully. For 2 centuries, we believed resistance was impossible. Now you humans appear, and suddenly the Vracs seem uncertain. Similar conversations happened across the galaxy as human diplomats quietly reached out to subjugated species. They shared tactics that had worked against the Vracs, methods of communication the reptilians couldn't detect, ways to move without triggering their sensing abilities, and most importantly, psychological approaches to undermine Vracs' confidence. Meanwhile, the Vracs Empire continued to fracture from within. Junior officers questioned orders. Patrol ships ignored calls to return to base. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the Vracs faced internal dissent. High Commander Skreeg called for a decisive action to restore order. We will launch our main fleet against Earth. When we destroy the human homeworld, our authority will be restored. But even this command was met with hesitation. General Zork, once Skreeg's most loyal commander, voiced concerns. The humans have proven unpredictable. A direct assault may be what they expect. Are you refusing my order? Skreeg asked, his scales darkening with anger. I am suggesting caution, Zork replied, a response that would have been unthinkable months before. Eventually, Skreeg assembled his invasion force, 500 ships, the largest fleet ever gathered in Vracs' history. As they prepared to depart for Earth, an urgent message arrived from the outermost Vracs colonies. Rebellions had erupted on 3 worlds simultaneously. The conquered species were rising up, not with weapons, but with tactics clearly learned. From humans, Skreeg had to divide his forces, sending half to quell the uprisings. The reduced fleet began its journey toward Earth, still powerful enough to destroy the planet many times over. On Earth, Admiral Morales and his team watched the Vrax fleets approach. Their long-range sensors, enhanced with technology gleaned from the captured Vrax shuttle, tracked the enemy's movement. "They're coming," he informed the Defense Council, "but not with their full strength." Lisa Bennett, now promoted to Admiral, presented their final strategy. "We've shaken their confidence. Now we need to show them a different way forward, one that doesn't end in either side's destruction." The plan was audacious. Instead of preparing for a defensive battle, Earth sent out a request for a formal meeting between leaders. The message was transmitted directly to High Commander Skreeg's vessel as it entered the solar system. "They want to talk?" Skreeg laughed when he received the message. Now, when they face annihilation? Yet something about the calm human request gave him pause. Throughout this strange conflict, humans had consistently behaved in ways the Vrax couldn't predict. They had shown they could penetrate Vrax defenses at will, yet had never launched a full attack. Against the advice of his commanders, Skreeg agreed to a single meeting. The location would be a neutral space station at the edge of the solar system. Each side would bring only one ship. Admiral Lisa Bennett represented humanity. As she prepared to board her shuttle, Admiral Morales gave her final instructions. "Remember, this isn't about winning or losing in the traditional sense. It's about creating a new path forward." When the two ships arrived at the station, both sides were tense. Guards from both species watched each other carefully as Lisa and Skreeg entered the conference room, a simple space with a table and chairs designed to accommodate both human and Vrax physiology. "High Commander," Lisa greeted him with a respectful nod. "Admiral Bennett," Skreeg replied, "the human who first defied Vrax authority. I've been looking forward to meeting you again." "We've come a long way since that first encounter," Lisa said. "Indeed. You've caused considerable disruption in my empire." Skreeg's voice carried a mix of anger and something else, a reluctant respect. "That wasn't our primary goal," Lisa explained. "We only wanted to defend ourselves." "By invading our territory? By approaching our breeding grounds?" Skreeg's scales darkened. "By showing you that we could have done harm but chose not to," Lisa corrected. "There's a difference." The conversation that followed lasted for hours. Lisa explained humanity's history, how humans had evolved not as the strongest species on their planet, but as adaptable problem solvers who had to outsmart larger predators. "We were prey animals originally," she told the surprised Vrax leader. "We became apex predators through intelligence and cooperation, not through natural weapons or armor." Skreeg struggled to understand this concept. In Vrax evolution, the strong simply dominated the weak. The idea of a species rising from prey to predator through methods other than physical power was foreign to him. "Why did you not destroy our breeding grounds when you found them?" he finally asked, voicing the question that had troubled him most. "Because that's not who we are," Lisa answered simply. "We don't want to exterminate the Vrax. We want to coexist." Coexistence? Without dominance? The concept seemed impossible to Skreeg. "Yes. Different species can work together, each contributing their strengths. The galaxy is large enough for all of us." As they talked, news arrived that changed everything. 3 more Vrax worlds had risen in peaceful rebellion. More significantly, some Vrax colonists had joined the movement, protecting former slaves from loyal military forces. Skreeg was shocked. Vrax turning against Vrax? This has never happened in our history. "Change is happening," Lisa said gently. "You can fight it and watch your empire tear itself apart, or you can lead your people toward a new future." For a long moment, Skreeg was silent. Then he asked a question that no Vrax had ever asked before. "How? How does one lead without conquest?" That question marked the beginning of transformation. Over the following months, negotiations continued between humans, Vrax, and representatives from formerly subjugated species. A new galactic coalition began to form, not an empire ruled by force, but an alliance of mutual benefit. Admiral Bennett became the key figure in these negotiations, respected by all sides for her combination of strength and compassion. High Commander Skreeg faced considerable resistance from traditional Vrax leaders, but the evidence of their failing system was overwhelming. A year after that first meeting, representatives from 23 species gathered on Earth to sign the first Galactic Cooperation Treaty. Skreeg stood beside Lisa at the ceremony, still imposing in his scaled armor, but somehow changed. "Your species taught mine something we never knew we needed to learn," he told her quietly. "What's that?" Lisa asked. "That fear can be wisdom," Skreeg replied. "The fear of losing what matters most can lead to better choices than the certainty of never losing at all." As they looked out at the diverse gathering, former enemies now cautious allies, Lisa reflected on humanity's unique journey. From prey animals on a single planet to the species that changed the galaxy's oldest empire, humans had proven that adaptation and empathy could be more powerful than any natural weapon. The galaxy's apex predators had indeed learned fear, but more importantly, they had learned that there was something beyond fear: hope.